Hello, everyone. My name is Sheldon Callahan. I'm with the developer experience team. Maybe you guys saw me yesterday. This is the Atlassian developer track. So we'll be talking about all the different aspects of the platform, all the new things. I'm excited about the next talk. This is going to be a kind of a deeper dive into the new authorization flow. So just a little housekeeping before we get started. Silence your phones if you haven't already. Download the app so you can give us a survey and let us know how we're doing at the end of the talk. The next talk, like I said, is going to be about the authorization flow. So we're going to have Francis give you a little bit more information about that. A little bit of background on him. Some fun facts is that he's from Brazil, but his favorite food is not barbecue. In fact, it is sushi. That's what he tells me. So you have some good sushi down there, too. A lot of Japanese influence. So, without any further ado, Francis.
All right. Thank you, Sheldon. So, hi everyone. My name is Francis. I'm a senior software developer in Atlassian's ecosystem team in Sydney. And my team has been working on the new authorization flow, and I want to show it to all of you here today in details. So, let's get started with a show of hands. Who here uses email at work? Who uses instant messaging as well? What about project management? No, something like Jira? You all use Jira, right? Okay, cool. So my point here is that work happens in many places today. We use a range of different tools, apps, and services to get work done on a daily basis. We have easier than ever access to them. They are cheaper, just only a click away from us. So we can pick the one that's going to make our lives easier and help us be more productive. That's great, but as with everything, there are trade-offs to it. In particular, in this case, is that information gets fragmented across all these different tools and apps and services. So let me give you an example. This is Blair. So Blair is building this book editing service. I don't know why, but books are always good for software examples, right? Anyways, the book editing service could be something like this. So there's a new chapter that the writer submits, and then an editor acknowledges that they're working on reviewing it. Then they provide written feedback about the outcome, which could be, yeah, the chapter looks good, or no, have to rework it. But every time the editor reviews a chapter, they have to switch to Jira and then manually update issues, transition them, and do all the work there. So for this product, it would be awesome if it could integrate with Jira without context switching and provide a way for users to do that action from this service. So there's actually something similar out there that we built. You heard in the keynote about the Jira Cloud for Gmail app. This is something you can start using right now. It's available. So with this app, whenever you receive a message with links to Jira issues or Bitbucket pull requests, you have all the information in place. So you don't have to context switch to them to see them. You can even perform actions from here. So like adding a comment to a Jira issue or maybe merging a Bitbucket pull request. And all of this is powered by the new authorization flow we are introducing. And the best news is that this is available under development preview to all of you here today. So you can start creating your apps and testing these workflows. We're going to talk more about that in details later. So OAuth 2 authorization code grant. Another show of hands, who here knows about this? OK, cool, few hands. Just going to quickly review the process. We refer to this authorization flow as Threelegged OAuth, or 3LO for short, because there are 3 parts involved. So we have a resource. In our case, it's Jira. We have the resource owner, which is a Jira user, and also someone that you provide services to. And we have a client, which is you, actually your app or service. So a high-level description of this flow could be something like this. You create a client, which is an app in an Atlassian platform, which is capable of doing 3LO. When you see the opportunity, like you see a link or something that looks like something from Jira, you can ask the user to authorize your app to integrate with Jira. When the user accepts that, you receive what we call the authorization code. And then with this authorization code, you exchange that for an access token. And with this token, you make requests to the Jira Cloud Platform APIs. Important thing here is that all these requests are impersonating the user. So your app is always behaving as on behalf of the user. So cool, right? But this gets even better. Have you noticed anything particular like in this flow? Anything interesting? So no installation required. So there's no installation in this flow. Any user can authorize your app to connect to their Jira Cloud account without having to install the app in their site. So there's no admin intervention as well, so no more work for admins. So this is pretty cool, and it's available. So let's see in details how do we get started with that. So to get started with that, we have a little bit of a journey. So this goes from less often things that we have to do to more often things we do more often. So we're going to start with the app setup. The app setup happens in a place we call app management. So to start this, we go to developer.atlassian.com, make sure you're logged in. Then you have that menu on the top right side. You can click that. You can see your apps if you created any tried apps, for instance, or something like that. But then you can click the Create app. You give it a nice name. Please read the terms and conditions for developers. Make sure you understand them. After we created this app, we have to enroll into Jira product. So we do that by clicking the add, and then we find the card for Jira there. Click that add button, then that's going to enable this option for us, and we can configure the scopes here. So clicking that, we're going to see a list of scopes. So this is important. It's an essential part of OAuth. These scopes relate to parts of the API that you can access. So we're going to request these scopes to the user, and whatever it's authorized by the user, it's what you can use from your app. So make sure to take a good look at them. There's good documentation about them. You're going to use actually the keys, not the descriptions like this. I have a slide with the docs link that you can grab later. And then after that, we need to configure the Threelegged itself. So we do that by clicking the authorization code grants on the left, and we have to fill in the callback URL. So this is the URL that your service is going to receive a redirect request from Atlassian's authorization server whenever an user accepts the integration. Going to talk more about that later. So another important part is the distribution details. So clicking the distribute link there, you're going to see this page. So two things here are mandatory. It's the vendor name and the privacy policy. But I have some tips to share, because this is really important. So please make sure to provide a good avatar for your app. Make sure to provide a good and easy to understand privacy policy in terms of service. That's important for users. And also provide a good customer support page so people know where to go to ask questions and get help. So this is all important because it's going to appear to the user when we request their permission to use their Jira account. So I'm going to show that later too. So another thing is that there's a warning in this page saying that your app is private. This is what we mean by development preview. So there's no control here to make our app public yet. But when that's available, it's going to be a toggle here, or some sort of control, that you can make our app public, and then any user will be able to authorize. Just be aware that some of these might change, like some names and links and something like this, because we are evolving this experience, and we want to hear from you. So please use that option there and give us feedback. So cool. Well, now we have like our app configured. We have the list of scopes and everything. So we go to this step that we call the authorization request. So this happens from your product, not from within Jira. From your product, you're going to use something called the authorization URL. So the authorization URL looks like this. Audience, response type, prompt are all static values. The redirect URI and client ID, they are in app management that we just configured. You can grab them from there. And important things here are state param. So this is a param only known by your app. You have to provide a random string, or it could be a JSON object that you can send. This value is going to be returned by Atlassian's authorization server at the end of the flow. So you can avoid cross-site request forgery attacks, and you can also restore some state related to that flow that initiated with this URL. And the list of scopes you are requesting. So if you request more than one scope, you have to separate it by space, like that. So cool. When the user clicks that, we get to the user consent step of the journey. So the user consent happens in something called the consent screen, and it looks like this. So this is where all the information I've been talking about comes into play, right? So we have the avatar there. We have the scopes you are requesting. And we also have the links to the privacy policy and the terms and conditions. So make sure to test this and see how your app appears here, because this is very important. We want people to look at this and trust your app and connect and start using Jira from within your products. So make sure that every time you make some change or anything, test this flow. OK, cool. So after the user hits the accept button there, we get to the token exchange phase. So what happens here is that there's a redirect request from our authorization server to your app. In this redirect, you're going to receive two things. The state param that I mentioned before. So make sure to validate that, OK, this is a valid state param. I sent this param. it's not only to my app, and also the authorization code. I'm going to use this authorization code in the next request. So I have to make a request to this endpoint. Important things here, grant type is just a static value. Client ID and client secret and redirect UI are in your app details in app management. You can grab there. And then you send the authorization code here. So the response to this request is going to be something like this, access token. And this looks like a random string, but it's a thing that you're going to use in your HTTP request to Jira. There's one thing before we hit Jira. Jira has its APIs structured like this. So if you notice, there's a prefix, and then we have something called Cloud ID. This is our tenant ID or something. It's the way we split the tenants. So to note that, you can make a request to this endpoint. And we call it accessible resources. It's a GET request. And to get the information about a token, in the authorization header, you send this value, bearer, followed by space, and then the access token. Response to this request is going to be something like this. So we have some information about the Jira instance. And important here, we have the ID. So we're going to use this. This is the Cloud ID. Also, we have the scopes. So for this token, you know which parts of the API you can make requests to. OK, cool. Now we have the Cloud ID. We have the list of scopes. We know what we can access. The next step is make request to Jira Cloud. So a request to Jira, probably already used it. It looks like this. The only catch here is that you have to use, in the headers, you have to send the authorization. Like previously, you have to send bearer followed by space and then the access token. Then if everything is correct, the access token is valid, and our authorization server can validate everything. This request is going to reach out to Jira and going to return you the data. So in case of Blair's product, it could be a test 1 to 3 issue that we want to know states, or we want to add comments, or we want to move it from one status to the other. And yeah, so we are making requests to Jira, but there's some more cases we have to consider. So one question is, what happens when the user has multiple sites? So they have different Jira instances that they have access to. An access token, this flow, the authorization code and the access token, they are only valid within a site. So if you have something that looks like a Jira thing, but you don't have access to that Jira instance, maybe you have like an URL, we can validate the base URL or something, you have to request users to authorize to that site. So you can request like as many sites as your app needs, and people need to go through the consent flow for each one of them. So in that consent screen, there's a drop-down that they select which site they are authorizing for. So just be aware, you might have multiple issue links and stuff like that. So be aware that users can have multiple sites, and your tokens might not be valid to all of them. Cool. Offline access. So this is an OAuth thing, and it's a scope. It's not in the configuration page. You don't need to enroll into the scope, but it's something useful. You can request this scope in the authorization URL. So why would we use the offline access? It's because the access token has an expiration date. And every time the access token expires, you will have to ask the user to consent again and grant you access again to get a new access token. So using the offline access, when you make the request to get the access token, our authorization server is going to return you a refresh token. With this refresh token, you can get a new access token anytime. It never expires. So for that reason, you need to be really careful with it. Treat it as a password, encrypt it, and make sure you store it safely. Because like a password, it can be changed, but the user needs to know that something happened and then revoke the grant. Because of this, it's not recommended in some cases. So if your app runs only on a client side, like a browser, the refresh token would be vulnerable there, so we don't recommend you to use, in this case, use a backend so you can store it safely, encrypt at rest, and all these things. And the last thing is scope changes. So scopes are flexible. Your app can request less scopes than what's configured in app management. You cannot request more scopes or different scopes than what's configured there. That's going to generate an error. But you can request less. So if you want to make it easier on users and only request, let's say, read issues, and later on you need to add a comment or something, you can request the write just before that moment. The only thing is that the user is going to see the consent screen, and they have to consent again. So make sure to leverage like what's the good experience with your app, within your app. So because they are flexible, incremental scoping is possible. It's pretty much what I mentioned. So you can only request scopes when it's needed from your app. The other thing is that scopes are additive. So if you request the read scope, and later on you request only the write scope, at the end of the flow, your access token is going to have both scopes. So you don't remove the older scopes, they're just added. Just keep that in mind. Once you requested the scope, you don't remove it. They are additive for now. Also, if that's a problem, let us know. We want to know how you're going to use these and these things. So yeah, let's build amazing things together. Now you know everything you need to know about OAuth 2 and Jira. I'm really excited about this. I'm really excited to see what everyone here is going to build. And yeah, I think we have some time for questions. Oh, and this is the documentation link I mentioned. You have the link there and a QR code if you want to use. And there you have these steps. You have details about the refresh token, how to use that, and also the scopes and mapping to endpoints.
Hello, there we go.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. My question is, will this workflow work if customer use G Suite authorization?
If they use, sorry?
If you use G Suite authorization. Google Suite authorization. G Suite.
G Suite. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how to answer that. This is going to work anywhere you can provide the link, I think, and you can handle the token. So I'm not sure how you do that in G Suite, to be honest. So maybe we can.
G Suite is pretty much same. It's just user authorized in front of Google service.
Oh, I see. I don't think so. I think you have to make the request to our authorization server. But I might be wrong about that. We can have a chat later. I can ask someone that I know has more information about that. And yeah, I can answer that better later. Sorry about it.
In the back.
Is this available for Jira software or just Jira Core?
This is just for Jira Core for now. That's why we say Jira Cloud Platform APIs. We are working on adding Service Desk and Jira Software in the future. But for now, it's just Jira Core. So I have like projects and issues and those things.
Any other questions? Okay, awesome. Well, thank you guys for all joining us. Please fill out the survey if you can. Let us know how we're doing. Hopefully you enjoyed the talk, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.